Hello everyone, I'm Alan Hyde and welcome to the first ever episode of BARC'ing Mad in partnership with BP Fuel, the brand new official podcast for the British Automobile Racing Club. Now let me start off by saying that despite the title, this is very much a podcast centred around motorsport and not doggies, although you can never be quite too sure where discussions may lead as we speak to some of racing's biggest and most interesting personalities over the coming weeks and months. For those of you that may not know, the BARC is one of the biggest motor racing organisations in the UK, operating 5 venues and responsible for more than 40 different championships. The club organises and runs more than 60 race meetings every year, with these ranging from the pinnacle of the sport all the way to grassroots. I've been a member of the club for more than 30 years now, and in that time I've seen plenty of change, not least the recent introduction of race meetings being live streamed. So that's the perfect segue really to introduce my BARC'ing Mad co-presenter and one of the faces of BARC's online coverage, Ian Waterhouse.
Oh, Alan, hello, how are you? And hello, everyone, as well. I've got to be honest, Alan, I'm just delighted to be sat here talking to you, if I'm brutally honest. Thank you so much. Yes, as you said, I have been in front of the camera. You might have seen me prowling the pit lane with Barc, probably getting everybody's way, annoying race drivers as they're about to go out and do a pit stop. But yes, hopefully you have seen me out and about. And as we know, there's so much coming up in this podcast too. More on that. But as we know, let's give you some context into what BARC'ing Mad really is. As Alan said, Barc's footprint in the UK motorsport scene stretches far and wide. And we're going to be covering all of it in this podcast. So we'll review every other Friday throughout the remainder of the 2023 season to discuss the biggest news stories and results from the club, as well as discuss some of the wider topics that are trending in the world of motorsport as well. It won't, Alan, just be you and me either, will it? No, we're going to have guests in every episode to breathe life into this wonderful sport, just like we try and do as well. We'll be diving into what makes them tick, their successes, and much more. And of course, we want to hear it from you, so make sure you follow the Barc on social media because we're looking to put some of the questions to the guests in each episode as well.
Indeed, Ian. And the BARC'ing Mad podcast is proud to be in partnership with BP Fleet Solutions UK. BARC members will now have access to discounted fuel rates at 3,400 fuel stations across the UK. This presents a significant advantage to those of you that rely heavily on fuel for your racing endeavours, whether it's standard grade or premium ultimate fuels for the team vehicles. The BARC BP partnership ensures you can fuel your vehicles more economically. This in turn enables racing teams to allocate more resources to enhancing vehicle performance and achieving remarkable results on the track. If you're a BARC member and want to save money on your standard grade or ultimate fuels, then head to bp.com/BARC. Right, let's get down to business. And today we're starting by delving into the latest news and results from the BARC. It's been a busy start to the season, with there being at least one race meeting on every weekend since the end of March. So now feels a good time to pick out some of the highlights so far this year. And I think, Ian, we're going to talk first of all about my first meeting of the year, the BritCar Endurance.
Absolutely, Alan. But I think we're going to need a little bit of help to get through this section here. It's a man who is a font of all Barc knowledge. So David Wheadon's with us. David, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, David. All the better for seeing you, of course. And we're going to start by touching on BritCar Endurance. Of course, the British Endurance Championship. It's been quite a big year for them, hasn't it?
It has indeed. Being a national championship and a Motorsport UK-backed championship has really made BritCar into something that I don't think it's been before, or hasn't been since the sort of the days of the 24 hours and stuff in the sort of early and mid 2000s. So it's really nice to see BritCar getting some recognition from MS UK and being moved up into a national championship. And I think the quality of the entries and the quality of the racing that we've seen this year from them has paid dividends.
Am I right to say that I can't believe where this year is going, but are we halfway through the season with the BritCar Endurance? We are.
Just about.
Goodness me.
I am with them next week at Silverstone, 24th, 25th. Yeah. Yeah, and we've got brilliant. And the thing is, it's really good to see we've got British F4 supporting, which obviously a national single-seater championship, Formula One license points championship, grounds for all of the future F1 drivers and future professionals to come through. So to have those off the token package and supporting sort of a more of a club meeting, that's just fantastic for us to be able to pull that one off.
It is. Because British F4 wanted to have a race on the Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone, because obviously that's where many of the drivers are aiming to be ultimately as part of the British Grand Prix. And you only have to look at how many British F4 drivers are currently in Formula One. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? 3, I think, in total. Lando Norris. Go on, David.
I think we've got not just Formula One, but I believe IndyCar, international GTs.
Yes.
There's a lot of drivers who have come out of British F4, went on to great things, not just the F1 guys. I mean, ultimately, if you're in British F4, the ultimate goal is Formula One. Obviously, it's a super licensed point scoring series or championship. But to get them, like I said, onto the sort of I'm not going to say a club meeting. I don't think that's very fair. It's not a club meeting, but to get them off the national Toker package and to get them doing some races with us outside of that, I just think it shows how versatile the championship actually know they are. I mean, it's great to have them with us next weekend.
Yeah, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Logan Sargent, and the current crop of ex-British F4 drivers that are racing at the British Grand Prix in just a few short weeks' time. So as we go down the list of things to mention club news, David, new championships with BARC for the very first time this year.
Yeah, we've obviously got the Caterham Motorsport group of championships has obviously moved over to BARC. I've really enjoyed working with Kirsty and Simon and the team behind their various championships. They are actually the support series for next weekend at Silverstone. So they are supporting Beck and the F4s. We've got the 270s, the 310s and the road sports next weekend. So we should have reasonably large grids from them. Fantastic close racing. Like I said, from my point of view, from an organisational point of view, behind closed doors, they've been fantastic, really helpful, and really easy to work with. So, sorry, I was just going to say kudos to Mark and Ben for getting them across to us, to be fair.
And the Caterham Simmons get an opportunity to shine with the British touring cars as well, don't they, at Silverstone this year?
Indeed, yeah. That's one of the great things about BTCC this year. It's opened up to, obviously, Legends and Caterham, and we've got some more of the Mini Challenge Trophy supporting them, and it's great to get these guys out on the stage where they've got fantastic exposure to potential sponsors and exposure for their current sponsors. So it all helps.
I have to say, with the Caterhams, David, I was there at Croft with them, and I can tell you something, the racing is absolutely insane. It's a real crowd puller. It really, really is good to watch, isn't it? Action-packed, close racing. If you want to see some fantastic on-track action, get yourself to a meeting, I would say.
Absolutely. And I think as well, we obviously run the Caterham Graduates Championship as well. And it's nice to have seen some cross-pollination there. Some drivers doing both championships, racing with both clubs. And that, from my point of view, is fantastic.
Excellent. Right, well, Caterhams are fantastic, aren't they? But let's just take a quick look at, because there's the Track Attack Racing Club as well. Tell us a bit more about that relationship.
Yeah, so that Track Attack raced with us. Track Attack's been a club for quite a long time, standalone club on its own 2 feet. And the gentleman who started it decided to retire last year. And the head honcho from Junior Saloons, Mr. Beecroft, Dave Beecroft, he bought Track Attack and brought it over to the BARC. It's fantastic. Run what you've brung, tin top action. You've got everything from French cars, German cars, Japanese cars, English cars. And it's very, very close racing, especially the 206 challenge that races within it, the Peugeot 206 Cup cars. They just race in a pack. It's superbly close. almost as close as catering racing, if I'm honest with you. So no, they've done a really good job, and they're building up on their grid size. I might be racing with them myself at the Fruxton Summer Festival.
Is that breaking news? Is that breaking news, David? Can we
move on?
Breaking news running across the screen.
Just move on, please.
I've got a weekend off. I've been scaring Pat, to be totally honest with you. Pat said to me, I'll give you some experience and some knowledge. And I said, Pat, I'll be flat out the complex till I get to
He's
the
even
chicane.
getting closer to the camera and move on, for goodness sake.
We've got him excited now. Well, let's move on, actually, because let's go from the cars. And let's go to the big heavyweight stuff now, shall we? The British Truck Racing Championship. And boy, oh boy, every time these boys take to the track, the galleries are stacked, David.
Trucks are absolutely superb. Believe it or not, it was 8 years ago to the day, as we speak right now, where I was at my first ever British truck racing race at Fruxton.
Wow.
Came up in my Facebook memories this morning. They absolutely amaze me.
They are frightening, aren't they, as they go past it? Have you met Pointy, who looks after them all? He should be on here because he is barking mad, that man. He really, really is. But, of course, Ryan Smith is the man to watch out for, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, what's he on now? Seven titles on the trot? Yeah. This could be number 8. Yeah. He's getting up into the regions of Stuart Oliver's 10 championships. It's great to watch them race. I've actually had some inquiries about new drivers for next year already. So it really is building itself up. Commercially, they're really switched on at the moment. They're doing great things with the live streams, autograph sessions at the circuits. Some of the queues you see for the autograph sessions are just unbelievable. And obviously, it rivals touring cars sometimes for spectators, especially at Brands Hatch. It's just absolutely mad. I believe the Brands Hatch meetings last year was the biggest pre-event ticket sales for Brands Hatch out of trucks, touring cars and superbikes. I mean, to be pulling those type of numbers in November as well just amazes me. But the racing's been fantastic.
It appeals to everyone. It's a family event. The youngsters love it. I've seen how excitable the Litlands get, not just for the fireworks at the end of the year, but for the trucks as soon as they come out. It's fantastic racing. I'm really sad that for a couple of years now I haven't really been too involved in the British Truck Racing Championship. But for many years I did the bookend meetings at Brands Hatch and loved every single moment. The thing that I'm really chuffed about this year is that 10-time champion Stuart Oliver running second in the championship and running pretty close to Ryan Smith this year. So this could be a great championship showdown towards the end of the year. Which leads me on to the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship, which is so close to my heart and of course close to the heart of the British Automobile Racing Club, to BARC as well. And so far this season, David, Ashley Sutton is looking to be pretty much unstoppable. He's doing a Ryan Smith.
Absolutely. I mean, personally, from a personal point of view, I would put Ash Sutton in the top 3 touring car drivers in the world right now, quite easily.
In the world, yeah.
I've been fortunate to watch him racing since he was 16. I used to look after some single-seaters, and he started in the same championship as us. He turned up as a 16-year-old wet behind the ears and absolutely wiped the floor with everybody instantly. So it's been nice to watch him up through Formula Ford, Clios, getting to touring cars, getting that first win in the MGA Croft, and then going on to be one of the most successful champions ever. I mean, Ash, if he stays long-term in touring cars, I think will rival Colin and Andy Rouse for most titles quite easily.
Well, he said to me a couple of years ago in an interview that it was his plan to win more titles than anyone else, and once he's achieved that, then he'll think about where he's going to go off and do his racing. But so that's really good news, because it guarantees that we've got him at least for a few more years. Colin is on 4, Andy Rouse is on 4, Ash is on 3, so we've got him for at least 2 more years, haven't we? and I'm pretty sure that he will continue beyond that as well. It's been fantastic to watch, but also good to see that the reigning champion Tom Ingram is running him. So if I carry on my truck analogy, he is doing a Stuart Oliver this year, and he's there or thereabouts in the points, isn't he?
Very nice, Alan. Very nice.
Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you. It's like I just threw this together at the last one. And all of that, of course, going on will be at the end of this weekend. We'll be at the halfway point in the season following Alton Park, and the first half of the year has just absolutely flown by. But it does lead me on also to talk about the Legends cars, which is one of the championships that I have loved for many, many years. I have been lucky enough to be involved with their end of season dinner for a number of years. I love doing it. I don't do it for the money. I do it for the love of the people that compete in it, because many of them have been competing in Legends for years and years and years. They're incredibly skilled drivers. They're great little cars, and this year 3 of their meetings with the Elite Cup are on the same bill as the BTCC, which is absolutely brilliant. We've had one so far, haven't we, David?
Yeah, some fantastic racing at that meeting. That was Brands Hatch, wasn't it? That they raced with BTCC.
It was, yeah.
And the thing about the Legends is they managed to race so close, and going over the line in a gaggle of 10. It's any 10 can win, isn't it? It's absolutely.
Going into Paddock Hill Bend 4 abreast is pretty exciting as well. That's for sure.
Indeed, it is. I mean, I just don't think you get much closer racing than the Caterhams. The Legends. If I'm honest with you, it's a spectacle to watch.
It really is, and the fact that this year they have the Elite Cup for 3 of their rounds, and they're the rounds that support the BTCC, and they have a normal championship as well. They're going on to Croft with the Elite Cup and to Knock Hill, which I can't wait to see. The Legends around Knock Hill is going to be a helter-skelter. So absolutely brilliant stuff.
Can I just say as well, they look so cool, don't they? They look so good. I have had the pleasure. I've had the pleasure of being a bit like you, Alan. I've been in the paddock with the Legends before. I've never been invited to the end of season dinner.
We're very exclusive, Ian, at the end of year dinner, I'm afraid. It's standing room only, I'm afraid.
Hang on, let me just see if the invite is on my desk. No,
we'll see what we can do.
I'll check the postbox. They are fantastic to look at. They really, really are as well. And everybody is lovely. I jest. I haven't been that involved with them, so I'm not worthy of a place at the table, to be brutally honest.
So I became closely involved with them. I can't remember, maybe 13 years ago, when I was booked to do the television commentary for it, and we got to the end of the year. And Phil Cooper, who runs the Legends Championship and has done since they started 28 years ago, he rang me at the end of the year and he said, "Oh, by the way, I don't know if you know, but we have this deal that the television commentator does the end of season dinner." So I said, "Oh, right." He said, "For no money." So, "Oh, right, okay, that kind of deal, is it?" So I thought, okay, well, fair enough. So I went along to the dinner and was sat next to Phil Cooper. And as we were having dinner and chatting about things that are all car related, I noticed his watch. And I said, "That's a beautiful watch, Phil." And he said, "Oh, thank you very much. It was a gift." And he took it off and he showed it to me. And on the back, it was inscribed with the name "From Robert." And I said, "May I ask who Robert is?" And he said, "Yeah, he was a rock singer in the 1980s, Robert Palmer." And I said, "What, the Robert Palmer?" He said, "Yeah, because of course I had a job before I did this. I worked for Island Records, and Robert Palmer was one of my best friends. And at that point, I became a lifelong friend of Phil. He has the most amazing stories from the world of music. Bob Marley and the Wailers, U2, anyone that was on Island Records is a mate of Phil Cooper's."
That is cool.
That is my story. That's where it ends.
Alan, have you heard the story behind the watch?
No.
So Mr. Palmer refused to do a tour. So asked Phil about the tour of vineyards. where they toured European vineyards and then would do a gig on the Wednesday, and that was the only way to get Palmer to do the tour. So Phil had to get absolutely sloshed with Robert Palmer, sort of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, do a gig on a Wednesday, just to get him to do the tour. So they did a tour of vineyards and did a gig once a week, just as a sort of a sideshow.
It's a tough job, but somebody has to do it, and Phil Cooper rose to the occasion. I just think from Phil downwards, the championship is a brilliant place to be. It's fantastic. And sorry, Ian, I know you were going to go on to our next topic, but I had to tell my Phil Cooper story.
Well, I was going to say, actually, Alan, it was well worth telling that story. And I'm pleased you did, because that is a bit of a cracker. All right, David, let's go into Ginetta, shall we? It's been quite a big year for them, hasn't it? In fact, they celebrated their 65th anniversary at Silverstone, and I believe you were there.
I was. We did the 3-day event for Ginetta last week at Silverstone, so it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. Some fantastic close racing from all the Ginettas, from the GT Academy, the GT Championship, and the juniors, especially the juniors. They don't seem to have any fear whatsoever. Ginetta really put on a great event. They had a lot of paddock entertainment, hospitality. They did some fantastic gift boxes for the marshals, caps, pens, thank you notes, that sort of stuff. So the marshals had a fantastic time. And they had some demos. They had the LMP1 car out, the LMP2 car out, and then they had a 1984 Senna Tolman that was going around. So I was on the pit wall for that one. No, it was a fantastic event. Just Ginetta. It was a superb weekend.
Just back to that, how did it sound, David, as it come whipping past you?
I'm not going to lie to you, that the LMP1 car was by far the loudest of the three, but the Senna car was pretty special.
Oh, yes, I can't. What I would give to have
been
there.
To be fair, it was the first car he ever scored points in as well. It was the car that he did his first 4 Grand Prix in, so he made his debut in that car and scored his first 2 World Championship points. So chassis 5, very very special car.
Did you try and go sit in it after?
I didn't, but fortunately enough, I know Jeff, who looks after it, Jeff Page, so I did go and have a good look over it, and Jeff and I had a good discussion about the Hart engine and some bits and bobs. So no, I spent 10 or 15 minutes having a little look over it.
I don't think I'd fit.
To be fair, I don't think I would neither.
David, let's go into a series that's very close to me, something I've been around for the last few years as well, the Classic Touring Car Racing Club. Season's well underway. It's been a cracking season so far. The racing is always wonderful across all of the classes. But let's just touch on what's happening in July, because we've got something very exciting coming up in the first and second, the Super Tourers, David.
We have. So Classic Touring Cars are doing an event at Brands Hatch. We're on the Grand Prix circuit Saturday and on the Indy circuit Sunday. And it's at the moment, obviously the event is angled as a super touring power festival. It's a bit of a nostalgia thing, especially for myself, because I was 10, 11, 12 years old when the BTC was running Super Tourers. So I cannot wait. We've got some current BTCC drivers racing there. Jake Hill's going to be driving a 98 Nissan Primera.
Of course he is.
One of my absolute...
That's the sort of thing that Jake Hill does.
Indeed. I mean, we're so lucky to get him a Goodwood as well. Through his association with Rick Wood, Jake has really embraced historic racing. So it's great to see him out in one of the Super Tourers, teaming up with Anthony Reid, who's driving his original Super Tourer from 98 as well. But the one for me, we've got a huge contingent of New Zealanders coming up. Believe it or not, there's lots of Super Tourers in New Zealand.
Yeah.
We have some serious bits of kit. There's a 97 Menu Laguna coming. We've got 3 or 4 Nissan Primeras. One of them's the Matt Neal Donington Park £250,000 independent car. That is being driven by Stephen Richards, who's coming from New Zealand, as in Jim Richards' son, Stephen Richards. So, I mean, absolute unbelievable touring car driver. The one I cannot wait for personally, one of my all-time favourite touring car drivers is Greg Murphy. And he's coming over to drive in the Super Tourer race. And I mean, if you don't know who Greg Murphy is, just go on YouTube and type in "Lap of the Gods." It's all you've got to do. Watch that. So for me personally, I cannot wait because I've actually got a weekend off that weekend, so I should be there as a punter.
Very nice indeed. Very nice. They're all going to be there as well, I believe. Don't forget, there's the Jags there, the Pre-03s, the Boss Thunder Saloons, Pre-66s.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's going to be an absolute festival, isn't it?
I cannot wait. All the grids, especially Pre-66 this year and Thunder, they are pulling in some fantastic sized grids. The cars are fantastic. The Class F in the Pre-66, the Cortina class. I mean, some of them are just absolutely stunning pieces of kit.
It's nice watching James Ibbotson just drive sideways, usually, isn't it?
Yeah, especially someone like James Ibbotson and his little imp. My counterpart colleague from BARC, John Hutchison, he's racing that weekend in the Pre-66 in a Gilban, which is a Welsh car. So he's really looking forward to that. Pre-83's got a fantastic grid as well, the Capris and the Mark II Escorts and the Triumph Dolomite Sprints. And like you said, all the way up to Pre-03, the Honda Civics and stuff like that. So there's a bit of everything for everybody.
It's a variety weekend, isn't it? It's really impressive. And I'm going to come on to one of my ones to finish off this segment, David, if you don't mind. It's the Mini Challenge. They have been embraced into the hearts of spectators at BTCC meetings over the last few years. Mini Challenge Trophy is a bit of a success story for the BARC, because we've got a couple of drivers that already so far this year who are really a result of our junior saloon program, if you like, our junior saloon car championship. Maximus Hall and Harry Hickton are both featuring so far this year. Now, Harry had a little bit of an accident at Thruxton, and we wish him very well in his recovery, because very often when you have an accident at Thruxton, you get a bit beaten up over the course of an accident at Thruxton. But Maximus and Harry and many others as well, giving us great entertainment in Mini Challenge Trophy.
Absolutely. There is a lot of ex-junior saloon drivers in Mini Challenge Trophy. Ashley Gregory's there as well. Alex Solly's there. I mean, there must be 8 or 9 junior youngsters who have come up into the Mini Challenge Trophy, but it's such a great championship. I mean, the cars are reasonably easy to build, reasonably easy to run. I cannot fault Rhea and her team. The support from the championship for all the teams is fantastic as well. It's great to see someone like Napa sponsoring a car, or sponsoring 2 cars, with WDE, and that just makes it look so much more professional and attractive to younger drivers who are looking at using it as a stepping stone to future their careers. Alongside, there's guys who have raced in the trophy for quite a few years. There's people who will sit there and race there for the rest of their lives, maybe, but a lot of junior drivers are using it as a stepping stone now, especially since JCW's on the Toka package. It's really good for us to be able to put together a ladder for the junior drivers, which we have in the books. I mean, at the moment, I've got about 80 to 85 juniors on our licenses on our books. So to give them sort of a pathway and a ladder up to the further sort of more professional, higher up championships, I think we do a really good job for the youngsters.
Fantastic. I just wanted to touch on the British Hill Climb Championship as well. A couple of standout events at BARC venues, Gerson Down and Harewood Hill, have already taken place. Usual suspects in the mix, such as reigning champion Wallace Menzies, but we've also got Alex Summers and Scott Moran, so well worth keeping an eye on the British Hill Climb Championship. Alan.
So that brings us to a conclusion of our BARC related section of our very first edition of the BARC'ing Mad podcast. David, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, it's been a busy time around the world too. So shall we look into a few of the big talking points and events from recent weeks? In order to do so, we have one of the leading lights and has been so for many, many years in the world of motorsport journalism, Marcus Simmons from Autosport. Great to have you with us, Marcus. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let me introduce you. Marcus meet Ian Waterhouse. Ian Waterhouse meet Marcus. Marcus has been writing about motorsport for pretty much as long as I've been talking about motorsport, and I tell you what, Marcus, we've had a couple of adventures over the years, haven't we?
I think, yeah, and I think basically what you're saying is we're similarly old, aren't we?
We are aged gentlemen. And we won't mention, Marcus, the whole day that we spent in the casualty department at the hospital at Macau, because that's got nothing to do with what we're about to talk about, which is a massive weekend.
Let's not do that.
No, we won't mention that. A massive weekend for global motorsport, the centenary celebration for the Le Mans 24-hour race, a race that I know you've been to many, many times, a race that I've been to many times as well. And all the build up to the centenary was huge. It was going to be the most amazing race. We had the first hour of the race, and I thought, are we going to be left with any cars at the end of this? Because they're driving it like it's a touring car sprint race, for goodness sake. But in the end, what we had was a classic result, a classic result, and a movie storyline result for the winner.
Yeah, I mean, completely. I mean, actually, I've not been to Le Mans since 2013. That was the last time I went, and so I've sort of, missed out on most of the, the previous big manufacturer rivalry between, when Toyota, Peugeot, and Audi were going at it against each other. But the interest in it was massive this year, wasn't it? And I was hooked to the TV coverage of it.
We were texting each other at various points during the race, weren't we?
We were, yeah. It was just a constant dialogue, really. But yeah, there was some. Obviously, you and I, Alan, we've both been around this sport for a long time, and you look down that Le Mans entry list this year, and there's probably about 50 people on it that you know quite well. People who you've done quite a bit of work with over the years. People that, in my case, I've sort of pushed early on in their careers because I really believed in their talent and wanted them to come to the attention of significant people who made the decisions. And it's so nice to see so many of those guys getting their reward at the dawn of what is really a golden era of motorsport in that particular arena, isn't it? I mean, we had out of the manufacturers in hypercar, we had Ferrari, Cadillac, Peugeot, Toyota, Porsche, plus the most beautiful car in my eyes is the Glickenhaus. Just love it.
Gorgeous.
Sorry, can I just jump in, Mark? You touched on it, actually. You've actually already answered one of my questions about, are we coming into now a golden period for the 24 hours of Le Mans? We see these things sort of go up and down, don't we? Toyota kind of were just competing by themselves the last few years, but now we've got all the manufacturers coming in. So we're heading into a golden period, we think. Now, when's the last time you remembered this much attention around the Le Mans 24 hours? I mean, it always gets attention, but it's gone almost like it's gone to another level this year.
I can tell you that, actually, because from my own, I was extremely lucky that the first time I went to Le Mans, I was relatively late in life to go for the first time, and the first time I went was 1999, when it was the classic battle between Mercedes and Toyota and BMW, and it was Audi's first year. And they weren't, funnily enough, bearing in mind what Audi did in subsequent years, actually they weren't contenders for the win that year. They were going to have to get really lucky. It was their experimental year, their learning year. And then the manufacturer battles at Nissan as well. I forgot. So the manufacturers that year were massive. Obviously, the race then got attention for the wrong reasons because of the Mercedes flipping twice with Mark Webber during the practice and qualifying sessions, and once with Peter Dumbreck in the race. And actually, I'll tell you a story, and you'll like this, Alan, because I was on the reason I went in 1999 is I was on a commentary team with the late Brian Jones, commentating for the Audi hospitality guests, and we were in a little cupboard at the back of their hospitality area with a TV screen in front of us, and I saw Peter Dumbreck flipping off the track and into the trees, and I'm thinking, oh my God, that's somebody I know, and I think he's dead. And I just stayed quiet. I let Brian handle it. Being the absolute commentary pro that he was, he struck the right tone of gravity and optimism and stuff like that. I just didn't say anything for 10 minutes because I thought, I'm not going to add anything here.
You had a lesson there. A lesson from one of the great commentators of how to deal with a major situation. I was on air on Radio Le Mans when that happened. So it was a tricky situation to deal with, that, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. But that in my mind was probably the last classic era. Then obviously Mercedes didn't go back after that, and then we began an era of Audi domination, which, although absolute 100% credit to Audi for it and the technology that they introduced, especially with the engine technology that enabled them to go faster on less fuel as per the regulations at the time, and also another great Le Mans thing that filtered through into their road car production. But it's sort of diminished the general interest in a similar way to we have in Formula One today, I guess, with Red Bull dominating. But so for Le Mans this year to be such an open competition with so much interest was fantastic. And we also, the most controversial thing was the balance of performance rule change just a few days before the race weekend kicked off, which I had misgivings about. So did sort of many of my purist colleagues, and really I think that's a bit of a dangerous precedent for the organisers, the ACA, to set, because obviously Toyota were more penalised for their success than anybody else. So did that make the difference between Ferrari winning and Toyota winning? Probably no one knows, but that's, the Ferrari win is a brilliant story, but the only caveat is that it would have been great to see the cars competing as they were in the previous races at Sebring, Portimao and Spa without any last minute changes in the regulations.
When I say that it was a sort of a movie storyline finish, to have Ferrari take pole position when they're back in the main class again, can I also bring in a link to our club, to the BARC, and say how proud I was of some of our drivers that, Marcus, you just alluded to it, that we got to know when they were racing for BARC championships. We had a former BARC Formula Renault driver on the top step of the podium. We had one on the second step of the podium, and also we had Richard Westbrook, of course, who was competing in the Porsche Carrera Cup back in the day as well. So we were well represented on the Le Mans overall podium.
Yeah, it was great. And actually, James Collado is somebody who I got to know in his Formula Renault UK days, in his second season, 2009. The funny thing was, he was clearly a major talent. But do you remember who beat him to the Formula Renault UK title that year?
No.
Timed out, Alan.
It was Dean Smith, And as far as I'm aware, Dean is now back working for the family pushchair business. So he's probably
Was it really? Was Dean Smith? Was it?
Yeah. So he's probably sitting there in the West Midlands thinking, "I beat him."
They are the fastest pushchairs, though. They're the fastest pushchairs in the West Midlands.
Yeah, but no, James was great, and it came down to a final round battle between him and Dean on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and James had this insouciant way of driving round in qualifying in the middle of a massive field of cars and just picking his moment and then going for pole position just when he had a clear track.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas Dean would put in a banker lap quite early to be on the safe side and then go quicker if you could. And James had that lap taken away for track limits or something, which he ended up P19 or something on the grid, and that just really killed any chance he had of taking the title. I mean, it was one of those classic stories where both of them would have deserved it, but yeah, obviously he went on to a great career, and
he's gone on to be a mainstay at Ferrari, hasn't he? He's been 10 years with Ferrari. He's won Le Mans before with Ferrari, and he's got a quite supreme. I mean, just watching him in the final on the television on the final lap, watching the TV screen, he looked cool, calm, and collected. But we can only second guess as to what's going through a driver's mind.
It was nice to see him, and also obviously Alessandro Pierguidi was in the car in the closing stint, and so James was sitting next to Antonio Giovinazzi, wasn't he, in that pit garage, and he's another driver who I especially like from my years covering the European F3 Championship.
Formula 3, yeah.
Lovely chap, lovely family, and for the two of them to be closing in on a life's crowning achievement was fantastic, and obviously it was a very nervous finish as well, wasn't it? Because they had the pit stop problems and had to put the power cycle back through the Ferrari to get it going again, and at one point it looked as though it was going to jeopardise everything, and then it happened again, didn't it? In the last half hour or so, and
that gave us something to be nervous about, didn't it?
Yeah, if they lose the same amount of time in this pit stop as they did in the previous one, we could be on for a complete Steve McQueen Le Mans rerun, couldn't we?
Yes,
race to the finish.
Precisely. I know, Ian, you were looking forward to seeing the NASCAR, and we've got another BARC link because, of course, Jenson Button in the NASCAR, and we had him as part of the BTCC paddock with Formula Ford back in the day. Went on to do British Formula 3, and it had the world's attention on it, that car, didn't it?
Did you see the picture of it in front of all the cars? The size of it is absolutely huge. I've been very fortunate to be, when it was all announced last year, I was at a special motorsport forum for it, and the two chaps who put it all together were there, and I had a quick chat with them, and they were very excited. But it just adds, we were talking a bit before, weren't we, Mike, about the buzz around it, the excitement, the stories that come out, and the Garage 56 NASCAR introduction really, again, just lifted the whole atmosphere around Le Mans.
It did. They accidentally made the car too quick, though, didn't they? Because I think I think the intention was for them to sort of be in there pitching on the pace of the leading GTE AM cars, but then suddenly qualifying finishes, and whoops, we're 5 seconds ahead, and we're actually we're actually in the mix of the lap times from the AM drivers in the LMP2 class, which is quite amazing, really. So it was a great story. It would have been interesting to see if they'd gone into the race with a let's go in all guns blazing and see how far up the overall order we can finish, because I think there was an element of caution in there, was about precautionary pit stops just so that we can get this thing to the race, to the end of the race. Sorry, it would have been great. But of course, what maybe listeners won't know is that Jenson Button showed signs of incredible versatility very early in his career. It was when he was selected for our what was then called the McLaren Autosport BRDC Award, but is now the Aston Martin Autosport BRDC Young Driver Award. One of the cars they tested, and this was after his Formula Ford championship winning season, so he'd only been in car racing for 1 year. And one of the cars he tested was the Nissan Primera, which was the benchmark car from the British Touring Car Championship. Yeah. And it was his performance, it was his absolutely unbelievable performance in the Nissan that played a major part in him winning that award. He would have been 18 at the time, and as I said, just 1 year of car racing under his belt, and to get into a car that Anthony Reid and David Leslie had been racing that year in the BTCC, and to absolutely drive the wheels off it, and incredibly quickly, just everyone was just, wow, this guy is amazing.
Well, I'm still waiting for the day, Marcus, that we can welcome him with open arms into the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship, and I'll hold out for the day, because he's remained friends with many of the friends that he made all those years ago in the BTCC paddock, that's for sure. Any other sort of major takeout stories? Autosport absolutely rammed with Le Mans stories from last weekend, and of course all of the press releases that came out as well. There was a lot of news last weekend.
Well, it was, and yeah, the magazine obviously gets planned weeks in advance, and we're so professional, we do it weeks in advance.
So you knew who was going to win.
Le Mans is a big deal for our readers, and the race always has a lot of coverage. So we've got 10 pages on the hypercars and sizable reports on LMP2 and GTE. What we didn't know was going to happen was that almost the entire news section was going to be taken over by Le Mans related news this week. Toyota revealing their concept of a hydrogen hypercar that they want to race at Le Mans by 2026. Alpine taking the wraps off the concept of their hypercar that's going to begin testing next month. Ford suddenly made an official launch of their new Mustang GT3 car, and even news relating to Le Mans people. So Kamui Kobayashi decided at a Toyota press conference to tell everyone that he was going off to make his NASCAR debut.
Yeah, I know.
and he's a really cool guy. I'll tell you a funny story about him, actually. Well, it's not really a story because I couldn't understand a word he was saying, but in 2019 I went to a Super Formula round at Sugo, and he was one of the leading contenders that weekend, and I thought, well, I'll go to the press conference, because Super Formula has a translator to help European drivers, or if there's any European media there. And Kobayashi was being asked a question in the press conference in Japanese, and he just sat back on his chair, long pause, and he said 2 words, and the whole audience just erupted with laughter. And I just thought, this is a guy who's a complete sort of celebrity in his homeland, and he's just got everyone eating out of the palm of his hand. And it's no surprise that he's also the team principal at Toyota now. Having seen the way he operates with people, obviously, not only a very fast driver, but a very intelligent guy as well, and absolutely nuts about his racing, isn't he? Otherwise, he wouldn't be going off to do NASCAR.
I suppose, Marcus, as well, you talk about people. You mentioned Aston Martin before. Apparently, former driver Sebastian Vettel's press officer was sniffing around Le Mans, and Charles Leclerc was there as well, wasn't he? Supporting his Ferrari lot, maybe learning a thing or two.
Well, that's right, yeah. And going back to my days covering European F3 in the 2010s, in the 2015 season, Charles Leclerc and Antonio Giovinazzi were up against each other. So, they'll have known each other. They'll know each other from those days. And obviously, Antonio then went on to the Ferrari Driver Academy and became part of their family, if you like. Yeah, it is cool, and the thing is, there are so many top professional drivers around that you almost think, oh no, Formula One guys, leave it alone, because we want these guys to have proper factory drivers as well. I mean, another you mentioned Richard Westbrook in the third place Cadillac, and what a great performance that was. But another Formula Renault UK champion with the BARC links in that car was Alex Lynn, of course, and him and Earl Bamber, the other driver. So that something like that is an absolute quality lineup. Look at the other works Cadillac, and it's got blooming Scott Dixon in it, and he's the slowest bloke in the driver lineup.
So Richard Westbrook, talking about Richard Westbrook, gave us a great moment, a great Murrayism during the Eurosport commentary over the course of the weekend. Lee Diffie, who is a fantastic commentator, and I think his first commentary job was working for the BTCC's Alan Gow on Toka, Australia, many years ago. But Lee Diffie was saying in the night time when it was getting wet, he was saying that Richard Westbrook is known to be just about the best driver in these conditions on the planet. And Lee had barely finished the sentence when Westy had a little turnaround, and so it was a proper Murrayism. It was absolutely unbelievable. You were talking about Charles Leclerc, Marcus, and it leads us on, of course, to the fact that we've got the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend. Formula One Grand Prix so far this year have pretty much been a story of Max Verstappen in an Adrian Newey designed world beater. They're crushing it out there, aren't they?
Well, they are, aren't they? And I was lucky enough to get to know Max when he was 16, when he was racing in Formula 3. Actually, I was lucky to get to know his dad Jos when he was a young driver. That's how old we are.
Yeah.
And he was just obviously the most incredible talent at the time, even at the age of 16. And it was just clearly a matter of time before he was going to win a world championship. I didn't quite think that he'd make his Formula One debut at 17, because I thought F1 is a bit too conservative for that, but not Helmut Marko. And it's really been a case of him waiting to have the chance, really, hasn't it? Because we had all those years of Mercedes domination, and how we'd love to see a Mercedes win now to break the mold.
Yeah, we would. Yeah.
But in each of those seasons, he scored, at least one or two wins, and with what clearly sometimes it was the third best.
Yes,
package,
yeah.
Because we had some seasons, we had one or two seasons where Mercedes and Ferrari were pretty much on a par, but Ferrari had a rather unhappy knack of throwing us away. Which, funny how they can do that in 1.5 hour Grand Prix, but not 24-hour endurance races.
Well, that's a question, actually, Marcus. Do you think then, coming into this weekend's Grand Prix, Ferrari's win at Le Mans actually puts a bit of extra spotlight and pressure on the Formula One team?
I think possibly, yeah. Or I wonder if less, because Ferrari have got their glittering prize for this year. Maybe it might take the heat off them a little bit, and they have a little bit of time to work around what they need to do to get closer to the Red Bulls. I mean, there's clearly nothing wrong with that driver lineup. Charles Leclerc is as quick as anybody. He's not as ferocious as Max Verstappen in a wheel-to-wheel situation, but who is? Carlos Sainz is another driver I rate really highly, and obviously he's shown at Silverstone last year that he can win on his day when the stars align. So it really the Red Bull machine is just, it's almost like the momentum is impossible to stop at the moment, isn't it? And the unfortunate thing for us is that, as excellent a driver as Sergio Perez is, he's not Max Verstappen. He's not going to provide a season-long challenge for the title in the same way as Nico Rosberg could do against Lewis Hamilton. It's funny because you're in this situation where you like to respect excellence, as Red Bull show and Max Verstappen shows, but you sort of want the odd upset from time to time, and we don't want cars to be performance adjusted like they were just before the Le Mans 24 Hours, and like they are in so many championships around the world. So yeah, it really is up to the teams to push on and crack on and get closer to Red Bull, and it's a bit tricky to see that happening at the moment, isn't it?
Well, one thing we can be assured of, Marcus and Ian, is that Fernando Alonso will give us something to be entertained about over the course of the weekend, because he's done it so very well so far this year. We're fresh out of time, Marcus. Thank you so much for joining us to be our superb guest, and maybe you'll be able to come and join us here on the BARC'ing Mad podcast again, for representing Autosport and all of your worldly knowledge on motorsport. Thank you so much.
Marcus, just one last thing, just before you disappear, just one very quick. We're building out a mega circuit throughout the course of the podcast, so we're going to have an ultimate circuit with our guests have chosen the corners. Which is your favourite corner in world motorsport?
Oh, blimey! Now I'll tell you the one that just comes to mind immediately: the Foch chicane at Po.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
that is my favourite place in the world to watch racing cars. Foch is just absolutely superb. The way that the drivers come blind into it and have to hit the curb at the right point. The underside of the car lands literally on the track, and they have to keep it out of the barriers. And then there's a chap in a house. There's a chap who owns a house that's on the exit, and he gets very grumpy if a car crashes into the wall of his house.
I'm not surprised.
It makes home insurance very difficult for him, Marcus. Very difficult indeed. Marcus, good answer. Thank you very much indeed. We'll put together the mega circuit by the end of the year. But thank you very much indeed. I know it's a very busy time for you, so thank you for making the time for the BARC'ing Mad podcast. And so we come into our final segment of the first ever edition of the BARC'ing Mad podcast, and it's our guest section. And we said at the intro that we were going to be speaking to some interesting people from around motorsport, not necessarily drivers or team members, but people from around the world of motorsport. And one with a good link to the club over the years is a motorsport artist. His name is Ian Cook, and it was only very recently that I realised that he had a name, because I only ever knew him, good marketing by the way, is PopBangColour. And Ian Cook, I can see you're very much in the studio.
I am. I brought all the show and tell that I could possibly, that I could. So yeah, I'm very much in the studio, surrounded by, well, pots of paint and colour and cars and stuff. So welcome.
Can you give us an idea, just before we get into explaining to people exactly what you're doing, what you've got behind you? Are they model cars that you've got, or are they very good paintings of model cars?
Yeah, this is some of my collection of Hot Wheels. So these are all Hot Wheels that are all in boxes. Wow. There's thousands of them. I started about 10 years ago, and it was just meant to be. Initially, I was doing press cars, so I was getting the brand of the car that matched what I was driving that week. And then it just became a thing. And now I've got a bit of a collection that people, when they come into the studio, they're like, "Are those for sale?" And I'm like, no, there. That's...
Sorry, Ian, can I ask you as well? Just behind you, you've got the Instagram, the old Instagram logo up as well. Did you paint that with cars? Did you do that with cars, or was that done freehand?
Both. This is all done with. These are a couple of examples of paintings done with the radio control cars. I've got a new piece that I've just done for Porsche over there. I've got a Lightning McQueen. I've got the Dunlop 60th anniversary print for the touring car up on display. So in the studio, there's some examples of previous artworks that I've done for different clients. So when people come in, they kind of get a bit of everything that I've done, really. So, but yeah, I did that. I think 2013, maybe now 2013. It's old school. Yeah, it's the vintage Instagram logo. Vintage. That one, and then my logo just behind me.
We ought to explain to people what Ian does. It is absolutely fantastic. Well, initially, we got to know Ian because he paints the most incredible paintings with remote control cars. Makes a heck of a mess, if you don't mind me saying so, Ian. But the end result is spectacular, absolutely spectacular. During lockdown, you sort of metamorphosized into drawings rather than paintings, doing your continuous drawings, and I did one with you. Ian did one with you as well during the lockdown period. How cool is that? You didn't hold it up for long enough. That's you standing by what vehicle?
That's me in my van. That's my old van. Yeah, it's me and my van as number 1,600 in the series. So there's now another 100 odd more on from that one that have been done. So
it begs the question, Ian. What came first, motorsport or art?
Well, I think being from Birmingham, and I can put on the accent if I need to. I did actually have this accent when I was a kid and spoke like this. But I don't anymore. Thank you. I love being from the Midlands, and I love that I can do the accent, but I don't have it. So Midlands, growing up in Solihull, where Land Rover are built. My uncle worked in the JLR all his life, and when I was a kid, when I was 14, 15 at school, and work experience was coming up, I wanted to be a car. Yeah, my uncle was a car designer. That's what that was his role when I was a kid. So I was like, that's the coolest job. To kind of, in my head, you draw a car and it gets made. Like I didn't think there was a big kind of process behind it. I was just like, you draw a car and somebody makes it. Of course, that's what happens. And not that you actually design or you draw like just the headlight or the fuel filler cap or the radiator grill or whatever. Yeah, like it's actually a lot more of a process and an engineering process. And my uncle's an engineer. I'm married to an engineer. I'm not an engineer. That isn't how I work. I work in this kind of crazy, kind of messy world. So I decided that I didn't want to be a car designer. After, as much as seeing how what was then Rover worked, and I went around the test track in a Rover BRM. I saw the new Mini before it was released, and the funniest thing about this whole experience was at school you had to write like a diary of what you were doing for your work experience, and I was under NDA. I couldn't say anything because I had signed a non-disclosure agreement to say I wasn't going to talk about anything I'd seen. So it was great because I was seeing everything, but I hate writing stuff anyway. So it was like, I can't say what I've seen. But it was a really cool experience. But then after that, I was like, right, I want to go into illustration. Hence why I can draw is because I did an illustration as my initial training. And then I went and did fine art. So I did illustration to start off with. And then I went and did the kind of more crazy, expressive world of fine art, which I really enjoyed. So I did my foundation, and then I went to the Winchester School of Art, which is why I lost my accent because I went down south, and so I went down with like this Midlands accent, and they basically Winchester, they were like, you can't speak like that around here, absolutely not. Went to Winchester, I did a BA in fine art painting, which I got a distinction in. I wrote my dissertation on how Land Rovers feature in films. I don't know how I got away with that, but I did. Which is quite interesting because I'm not a film student. I was a fine art student. And then I graduated in 2003. 2004 I graduated from Winchester. And then I was like, yeah, I've got a fine art degree. I'm an artist. And then my parents went, got to get a job. Pay the bills. So I came back to Birmingham. I did bar work for 2 years. I did kind of a year of bar work and nightclub work, which was really good for people skills and learning how to communicate, and just kind of I started to get a little bit of commercial work from being in the bars. So I started to photograph DJs behind the decks and stuff, because at that point there was no Facebook, Instagram, social media. It was just like I had a DSLR camera because I was an art student, and I started to photograph the DJs. So photographed the DJs. One of those DJs saw a photo I'd taken, and he said, "Oh, can I use it as my album cover?" So I then got a photo as an album cover. I remember going down to HMV to buy it. I don't know why I didn't get a free one. I had to buy it, but you know, those are the days. And then. Yeah, and I remember I brought it back around to where I was working in the restaurant, and my then manager was like, "You seem very excited about having an artwork on a CD." I was like, "Yeah, look, my artwork's in a shop, amazing." And he was like, "Yeah, I think you need to be in the art world, not the restaurant world." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I probably should be." And that's where I started teaching. So I started teaching in 2006, 2007, and then from there, that's when I then started to much more do my own thing and experiment, and I was able to use the studios at where I was teaching as an art space because I didn't have a studio at home at that point. So I started to kind of experiment, do bigger stuff, and that's where I was. So it started because I was given a radio control car by an ex-girlfriend, and she said to me, "Don't take it down the studio and don't get paint on it." So I thought, that's a good idea. see how I can paint with a radio control car. I didn't take that one down. I took a load of other ones down. And started to work out actually how do you apply paint? Do you put paint onto the tires? Do you put a paint tub on top of the car? How do you actually paint with a radio control car? It turns out if you put the paint on the canvas or the paper, then run the car through it, then you can guide it better to then create artworks with radio control cars. So that started end of 2007, mid 2007, and then in 2008, I was commissioned by Reebok to paint a portrait of Lewis Hamilton the size of a three-story building, and then that hung next to the Tower Bridge in London, and that was my first corporate work. So that was my very first kind of commission piece, which is like, when you think about it, that's the first one I ever did. It's a bit like
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was very strange, kind of, but I'm really grateful. I was 24, 25 at that time. I had no idea, which is brilliant because I was able to experiment and try things, and I didn't have commitments like a mortgage and blah blah blah. At that point, because I could just go, right, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm going to try it and push it and see how to make it work. So, and that's when I then started doing shows like Autosport International and the big kind of car shows, Bewley, and then it was Goodwood in 2008 that I was spotted by the advertising agency MC Saatchi, who were Reebok's PR agency. So they saw me at Goodwood. I got my manager at where I was teaching. He actually took the phone call and they were like, "Oh, we want to speak to Ian Cook about Reebok and Lewis Hamilton." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm in trouble." I thought like McLaren, they are super clean, not messy at all. Like I was like, I'm definitely getting a lawsuit at this point. It turns out, no, it was just trying to work out how big I could paint, and it was, I was invited down for a meeting, and I generally thought it was like a wind up. From the point of arriving, I just generally thought there's somebody's going to jump out and be like, "Ha, we were joking," and they weren't. So,
Ian, am I right in saying you've done so much, you've achieved so much, but you have the big one, don't you? You have a Blue Peter badge.
I absolutely do. And the funny thing about that is that I was actually, so I was in touch with Blue Peter prior to doing the Lewis Hamilton piece, and I was when I was teaching, I was ringing them on my lunch break, going, look, I've got this bit of press, this little bit of media. I've got this. Yeah, you want me? Yeah, you want me? On the program, they were like, yeah. When you do something, when you do something important, we'll get in touch. And then the week after doing the Lewis Hamilton piece, they rang and said, look, Lewis is getting his gold badge. Can you come and do something and paint in the studio? And I know we did it live in the studio at Television Centre. It was bizarre. It's still one of the most bizarre things I'd ever did. Like it was like the live show. I got my badge. Yeah, there was a guy who walked around with a pocket full of badges, and he was just like, "Oh, do you want a badge?" I was like, "Yeah." Do I want a badge? Of course, I want a badge. Even a friend of mine came with me just to support me because I was like, "This is weird." And she got a badge just for sitting on the couch. Like I was like, "How? She didn't do anything." I was like, "I'm here." Yeah.
It wasn't like that in my day. It wasn't like that in my day. You had to be a participant to get a badge. That's really not. I saw you on the One Show. Was it before the Diamond Jubilee concert, 2012? Did you not do a picture of Jessie J?
So again, so all of this stuff is it's weird because it's 16 years of doing it. And I often forget the timescale. So I literally did a pod last week. And I forgot I just forgot time. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's this," and so I thought, right, I'll put down a bit of a time scale. So I have got a bit of it in front of me. I've been like, right, these are the key things that I don't forget because I'm really good at going. Oh yeah, that was that. When was that? Oh, that was 4 years before then. So Jessie J. So that happened because I was invited onto. I did the very first Car Fest with Chris Evans. So I was doing Carfest. I was painting Chris Evans because he just owned Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So I painted Chris in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And then he came and signed it. And then he was like, do you want to come on to the one? Yeah. And then that's when the One Show then happened. And the One Show rang me up and said, we've got, we want you on the show, but can you paint a portrait of Jessie J? And I was like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, she's not really automotive or car related, but okay. She was
I'll have a go.
And painted a portrait with it was her album cover, so she had it was her album cover. It was her with a tongue with the Union flag, with the Union flag on it. And it was a massive thing about portraits. When I do them as paintings, they're big. They're a metre and a half by metre by metre and a half. So I mean, what does somebody do with a massive portrait of themselves that big? And she was like, "Oh, can I have this artwork for the fridge?" I was like, "A fridge? Like how big's your fridge?" So that was 20. Yeah, that was the same, and that was the same year that I did the Senna movie artwork. So the Senna movie art was done at Autosport, but that year the Senna movie was really popular because it had come out on DVD. And it did a lot better in DVD than it did in the cinema. So that artwork was getting a lot of traction, and then obviously One Show propelled that again, and that's what it was all about. It was just always about kind of putting stuff out there that would either get media. I mean, I grew up in an era of artists of kind of Hearst, Emin, Chapman Brothers, who were all based their artwork on getting into the media. We're getting on, if you did something, generally theirs was all shocking and it got media sometimes, you got the, Hearst with his shark in formaldehyde and whatever. So I wasn't going for the shock factor, but it was more that I paint with radio control cars. This is done with a radio control car, and that's what sold the stories into the.
That's your unique selling
USP,
point.
Yeah, totally. And nobody else does it. Nobody else does it in the world. I am the only person who paints with radio control cars, which is great because it means I get to I've travelled the world doing it, which is super cool. I did.
Has anyone else tried? Do you know if anyone else has tried to do it?
I think I have got all the radio control cars and toy cars, so therefore. Nobody else can.
We can see them all on the back wall. We can see them all there.
I've hoarded everything, so nobody else can actually even attempt it. No, I think for me, because I think I do it publicly, like I do it at shows, at events.
Yes.
I'm the face.
And you're really good with people, the punters that are watching, you interact with them and all of that kind of thing. That all helps massively, doesn't it?
I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy that I'm part of the motorsport scene, and and I'm really chuffed that I can see drivers, and there's that. That the motorsport is a family of people. Like, it's and we all kind of interact and know each other, and that's as well as motorsport. But that's the car fraternity in general. Like, it's just that within 3 or 4 people, you can get hold of somebody, or somebody will be the expert in something if you need something. And that's what's great about it. That's what I really, really enjoy is that I kind of fit into this unique world of like events and art and painting and creating people's passions, and I've been able to work for brands and the like to create stuff that people seem to like, which is awesome.
But I just really want to know, Ian, obviously cars are a passion for you. Is there one particular car that you haven't drawn yet that you really are desperate to?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I get a lot of people asking what's my favorite piece, and I always say my next one because I'm going to enjoy creating whatever's next. And I've been fortunate enough. There are 650 paintings that I've done. There's now 1,700 drawings. So between the drawings and the paintings, I've created a majority. Not a majority, but like I've kind of ticked off a lot of the stuff that I like. I mean, and the joy of motorsport is that there's always more new stuff coming out. I mean, you saw Le Mans over the weekend, and there's there's that Camaro, the Camaro NASCAR that looked really cool, the Ferrari that won, and what's beautiful about it is that the motorsport it continues, but it changes. Sponsors change, cars, whether it's touring car, the liveries are always different each year. I mean, doing the Thruxton poster was really cool. Like, for me, it's probably more like where I create, or what the key things for me is like I've done Parc Fermé for the F1. I've created out in America. I've done Le Mans. Done out out in the Middle East. So for me, it's always about where it's being created, and that's the joy of having the studio car that's a mobile studio that I can go and be at any event, like whether it's Bicester like this weekend or wherever. I'm very with the drawings. I'm much more flexible. I can just go and draw something which I like, or something that's been commissioned. Paintings are hero pieces, but they've just got 2 different feels to them. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's
We'll say yes.
Not
really, but yeah.
I love that there's always going to be more stuff for me to do. Whether it's road car or race, there's always the next thing coming out.
So my full circle that will bring this conversation to a conclusion with Ian would be to talk about the couple of things that specifically relate to the BARC, the club. Of course, this is the very first podcast, so you are our honoured guest for our first edition of this podcast.
I am.
You mentioned earlier on that you did a specific, rather beautiful artwork for the 60th year celebration for the British Touring Car Championship just a couple of years ago, and then last year featured on the cover of both of the Thruxton BTCC programs as well. And as somebody that likes his motorsport, both of those must have been something pretty special. You've got a copy of some. There you go. There it is. Wow. Well done. That was quite a special request, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the first time that the brochure, the brochure that was ever done as an artwork. It's always been edited images or photography, or which equally there's some amazing photographers who I've been able to work with, and that's great. But for me, as a fan of the touring car, as somebody who's watched it since Super Tourer days, and being able to be involved with it and have people bring the program up and have it signed at the event was that was really special. It was really cool to do it. And both when I did the anniversary artwork on that Snetterton weekend, that was when they were running on Dunlops, and equally that artwork was then signed by the drivers and then auctioned off for charity. And that's all. Like to have my stuff associated with that is really special and exciting, because it's to have to be involved in motorsport is something I love. I'm passionate about. And hopefully more things will happen in the future. I never know what lands in my email. Which is kind of still exciting, because it's exciting that I can be involved in this and people want me to do it as a painting or as a drawing. It's a real privilege. So it was cool to do Thruxton and the touring car a few years ago as well.
Well, Ian, it's been a privilege to have you on for the first ever edition of the BARC'ing Mad podcast. Carry on doing what you do, because it's absolutely brilliant. It's fantastic. We love it, and you will continue to bring joy to many, many people. Not just that, but your passion for what you do has come out in this podcast. So, Ian Cook, thank you very much indeed.
Cheers, guys. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ian. Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for on the first ever episode of the BARC'ing Mad podcast. And I can't believe how quick that went.
It certainly did. Goodness me. But the good thing is we don't have to wait too long to do it all again. Episode 2 will be available to listen to on Friday, the 30th of June, where we'll have lots of racing news and results to talk about, as well as another fantastic guest to chat to as well.
Absolutely. And don't forget, there's plenty of BARC action to savour before we're back as well. This weekend sees the BTCC head up to Alton Park, whilst Thruxton will be winding the clock back for its annual historic meeting. That's one that's not to be missed, and tickets are available to purchase on the gates as well if you're thinking of going, and I recommend you do too. Next weekend, the British Endurance Championship, Brit Car Trophy and British F4 Championship will be heading to Silverstone on the legendary Grand Prix circuit. If you can't get there, you can watch it live on the BARC YouTube channel, where you'll be able to see yours truly. So apologies in advance for that one. But do expect edge of the seat entertainment there.
Lots to be excited about and to enjoy, that's for sure. Well, from myself and Ian, we'd like to thank Marcus, David and Ian for joining us on the first episode. And thank you all to you for listening. Don't forget to stay up to date with all of BARC's news on the BARC website. We'll be back again in a couple of times. Until then, don't forget, if you're en route to race or spectate this weekend, don't forget that the partnership between the BARC and BP Fleet Solutions UK goes beyond conventional fueling solutions. Our members can now embrace the transition to electric power more easily thanks to the added convenience and savings offered by the BARC BP card. bp.com/BARC is where you need to go. Thank you again to our partners BP and to all of you for supporting our community and for supporting our first podcast, the BARC'ing Mad Podcast. Back in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.